Welcome everyone to our Humanities Team panel entitled The Power of Art and Activism, Shining Light on the World We Wish to See. And I am your panel host, Julianne Turner, author of the Genesis of Genius book series, founder of ConsciousSHIFT.me, and host of the global ConsciousSHIFT radio show. And I am so excited to welcome in with us three global artists and activists. I want to introduce each of them just briefly here, and then they're going to share their viewpoints on some amazing questions and insights here coming up on the power of art and activism. So first of all, I'd like to introduce Shukria Dellawar with the red background there. She is a recognized global peace advocate, having briefed Congress and the State Department on Afghanistan and other critical international issues and relationships. She's led a coalition of more than 250 global peace building NGOs. And she is also an artist, a divine poet and author, and is currently writing her memoir, and is the founder of Artist Activist Alliance. And we'll be talking more about that. Shukria, welcome.
Thank you, Julian. Great to be here.
And next we have Myrna Clayton, who is commissioned as a cultural ambassador by the U.S. State Department to represent American music in U.S. embassies around the world. She's traveled all over the world performing as a renowned jazz singer, and also is founder of the nonprofit Showability, which enables people with disabilities to perform and share their gifts with the world. Welcome,
Thank you.
Myrna. So glad to have you. And then we have Kathy Ramsperger, who has been a leader with the International Red Cross and with National Geographic. She's an award-winning novelist of multicultural books, featuring multicultural relationships and global issues. And she's now sharing her new vision for what she calls humanity's greater story. We're going to talk more about that. Welcome, Kathy.
Thank you. So wonderful to be here with all three of you.
And it's wonderful to have all of you. And so as we begin, first, why this panel on the power of art and, this topic? And it struck me, first of all, as we were preparing for this to share with all of you, it's a pretty profound scope, art and activism, and lots of powerful impact. We're going to be covering just some high points on this world-changing topic that I think will be really relevant for our time. And I think people understand that there is a power that art has to transcend through story and music, dance, through drama. All of those forms transcend and transcend divisions, right? Arts are a universal language, right? And enable us to see our commonalities. Images, music, movement, they transcend our differences in languages and have the power to reach across borders to activate humans to a higher shared connection and purpose. That's why it's so important, this idea of art and activism. And in many cases, art enables us to bypass resistance, prejudices, because they help us see our commonalities instead of our differences. And as I was studying and writing my book series, Genesis of Genius, what I discovered is that art creates a way of seeing things differently. It really creates a way of seeing things outside of ourselves and we can see things differently without it threatening us in a way. We can come to realizations, and because it's something outside of us, we can see it better sometimes than we can see it in ourselves. So we can see our lives differently and also see possibilities that we may never have thought of through the transformative lens of art. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, together, and sharing different perspectives on. The first thing I want to touch on is the ability of art to shift human minds into possibility. Okay. And when we see in our world so many divisions and seems very chaotic, if we can shift our minds to a greater world that we wish to see, to a possibility, that's powerful. And Kathy, I'd like to start with you because I'd love to hear more about your concept of humanity's greater story, because that shifts us into that realm of possibility.
Thank you, Julianne. I can't imagine being with a group more kindred in spirit and mind, and um, we are our stories. I've spent a lifetime, even before I had a career, attempting to show others how to see life not just from the other side of the bridge, but from multiple perspectives. I had a friend who said just day before yesterday, and she put it more beautifully than I ever could, you can see life between the leaves where the sunlight comes through, where there's light and shadow, and I'm lucky, blessed that way, and I wanna share it with other people. Um, and my newest initiative, which, stemmed out of a podcast where I was taking the world's stories and interviewing the authors, and sometimes it was just somebody's story of immigration or living through war or coming out of poverty. Um, it led to this, and, but it can be any part of what I think I've done with my life story because it involves the principles of the Geneva Conventions, like neutrality and impartiality, and it also, is about seeing the whole world and not just a little fragment of it. Um, but what I've attempted to do over the past, I'd say 5 years, is to take one-on-ones and groups and show them their story. And I'm showing them their story, but they're actually seeing their story. Um, and we all have a story. We're writing our life story one moment, one paint stroke, one note at a time, one breath at a time, even if we don't realize it. And the stories we create become part of a larger whole as we're sharing them because we're all connected. And we're each adding our unique story to humanity's greater story with every decision we make, every action we take, every word we speak. Words are important. And since we're already contributing to writing humanity's greater story, we can change it. In fact, we are empowered to change it and could be the only ones, the people, humanity, and not our leaders, not our gurus. They're part of it. They may lead us, but we are the people that can change our story. Um, and so I ask everyone, do you like the story you're living right now? Because if not, write a new one and live that one.
Mm.
Thank you.
Yeah, some beautiful perspectives and insights, Kathy. Thank you for that. I love that concept of humanity's greater story because we always have that power to tell a greater story and not just settle for what is, but what can be. Um, Shukria, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the importance of arts in creating a higher vision and new possibilities.
Sure. I think you hit the note when you said it's outside of us. True. And Kathy just pointed to that individual responsibility. And artists show us what's outside of us, but it's helping us reflect internally where the spirit is. And I think that's where art just takes the boundaries, like sheds the boundaries, and we can see each of us as human, whether you're in a different part of the world, different ethnicity, different color, different belief system. It doesn't matter. We're all human. We all have the spirit, and the beauty of art is that it transcends all these boundaries and help us see the humanity in each other. So for me, like working with artists is so important because I've spent so many years as an advocate, and I realized that art has a greater power because it connects us all to the heart
Mm.
space. And you can use the logical mind, but the logical mind has a lot of conditioning. So it really drops us in the heart space, and it opens that safe space for all of us to understand each other. Thank you.
Yeah, that's beautiful. It really does open heart space. And Myrna, I would imagine you've seen that every time you've performed or been with a community group that you've brought together. Tell us a little bit more about your experience with art shifting us into possibility.
You know, as we've all been talking about, it's that outside looking in, and the ability for art and artists to see persons as they are. We can see you in a way that you may not see yourself. And so we have the opportunity to express to you how beautiful you are, how fulfilled you are, how much you have going on, where an individual may not see that in themselves. And so with this title being Shifting the Human Mind into Possibilities, it is a paradigm shift. It very much so is, as I see it. And art facilitates that. Art is very much so a facilitator. We may have experiences and not know that what we're experiencing is beautiful until somebody else says, "Oh, that's so lovely." We may take it for granted. And so it's within the arts that we understand how beautiful a certain thing sounds, or a certain thing looks, or a certain thing smell. And so for me, the possibilities exist when you have that collaboration, that connectivity to another person, another human being who um, uh, may not be recognizing things as you are. And so that exchange, that ability to see the possibilities that are there because someone else may not see it. And so again, as artists, we're able to see things, I believe, in a different way. And one other thing I want to just kind of share in that space of seeing, oftentimes I'll say we need to close our eyes to be able to see what's ahead, because what we
Mm.
see in the natural may be very distracting. And we need to just close our eyes to be able to see, envision what's possible. Because what we're looking at does not look possible. I can't even see how this is happening. And so believing that the spirit within, with, with, with God, nothing is impossible. And so God is within me. And so that means nothing is impossible for me. But we have to shift our mindset to believe that. And so that to me is arts and artists allow us to go to that place of possibility.
Absolutely. Beautiful. One of the things you touched on too, Myrna, that Kathy had mentioned was um, the importance of sharing stories, whether that's in the form of a song or a drama or a dance, writing. When we do that, we see that we're not alone. We can see ourselves in other stories. Almost immediately, when we hear a story, it prompts for us, oh, that reminds me of something that I can relate to, right? So that also helps us bridge differences almost immediately. So one of the topics that I think is important for us is why the imagination, the human imagination, and art are essential. Sometimes we think they're not, like they're nice to have, but why are they essential in helping us change our world? I'd like your thoughts on that. Shukria, would you start us off?
Sure. I feel like it's going back to what Myrna just said. Artists have this ability to envision. When we're all going about our life and we're all dealing with different realities, right? And in the current interconnected world with social media, we see climate change, we see disasters all over the world, we see wars, we see atrocities. Everything is so accessible, right? So the mind can go into so many difficult places: poverty, economic hardship. Um, but what the imagination can do is shut that off and envision a different kind of world, a possibility of beauty, of hope, of harmony in humanity. And that imagination is so critical because when artists give us that vision, the activists are able to make that tangible through action. And to me, they both that works together. Like if we don't have the imagination and a vision, it's like both sides are required. It's the heart and the logic, right? So the artist provides the heart and the imagination and the vision, and the activist is able to follow with action, with tangible results, with impact, whether it's on policy or just reconciliation. All those pieces require action too, but the first part really comes from the artist's imagination, or just the human imagination of a better possibility for tomorrow.
One of the things that you shared with me too, Shukriya, was that art can bring the hidden to light, right? We see that in the world and in in our social media culture now. It really brings the hidden to light, um, and we see movies that help us see things that we would never really be able to understand or even know are happening in the world. But art also, I believe, reveals universal principles and truth, and as you said, kind of can move people into uh, into emotion, and then that activates us to move with our reason, our intellect into action. As we know, most of the time it's that heart touch, it's that emotional touch that then motivates us to move forward. Um, Myrna, I would love your thoughts too on why imagination and art are essential.
Art is all about imagination to me. It's putting something that never existed into action. Um, our creativity is imagination. And alone, we can have some fabulous ideas, but together, we can learn other things that we never knew. And so that's one of my favorite lines from the Disney Pocahontas song. You'll learn things you never knew. And that's where imagination is so fabulous, where individually we can come up with some great ideas, but when we come together collectively, we can enhance each other's ideas. And so for me as an artist, that happens, especially in the space of jazz, where that happens when you bring different instruments together and different minds together, and all of a sudden, and then of course with the audience, then we're able to go to a place with each performance that didn't exist previously, and you can just build on each experience, and it's such a wonderful improvisational thing that happens each time you play even the same song, because it is so wonderfully different. And that's where the imagination comes, because you want to build off of what you already know, but using things that are lovely to as the foundation. And so for me, it's very essential to have that spark, which is the light that inspires individuals. And that where you talk about art brings the hidden to light. Sometimes people don't want to be exposed,
Mhm.
and that light takes that hidden to say, oh, wait a minute. And then depending upon the response, it could be, oh, that is so beautiful. Yes, come on out, come share with us. Or the other side is no, stay hidden. We don't want to see you, And so there's both sides of that. And um, um, in that revelation, the 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 beauty is things through the imagination can come and uh, reveal things that are necessary to
Mm.
be revealed so that they can be corrected or enhanced or improved upon. So, and that's what art, oh my gosh, that the colorfulness of it, the beauty of it allows us to do that. And it gives us the liberty to do
Mm.
that. That
Yeah,
liberty
that's
is so
beautiful.
important to do that.
It is. And when you talk about improvisation,
Mhm.
that when we all contribute our expressions, our gifts, it becomes greater than the whole. It's amazing what humans can do. And Kathy, too, that's part of our uh, humanity's greater story. It can be a greater story because of our contributions. I could see that you had some thoughts on what Myrna was saying. Go ahead and share.
I had thoughts on what everybody's saying, because it stimulates me, right? So the way I see imagination is a connection to what I would call intuition and connection to source. Um, and then we bring it back down and we make it our own. And if, say, we're looking at a painting and it's a gateway and it's a red gateway and there's a tunnel and it's a blue tunnel and it stirs something within us and it connects to that whatever it is in us in our heart that makes us feel and not use our intellect, and we've connected with the artist in that moment, and then we bring it back and we bring it into our own heart and make it our own. And I think the ability for any kind of art to stimulate somebody else into their own imagination, perhaps change their perspective about something, and then bring it out into the world in action is what the best art, if not all art, does. And I might add that there's a reason that all the spiritual leaders and gurus that I know of, Hindu, Muslim, uh, you name it, Christian, they spoke in allegory. That's because we respond to art and story in a way that we cannot to even the most impassioned speech. Um, but if that person speaking is talking in an artistic way, a lyrical way, I'm thinking Martin Luther King Jr., that's
Hmm.
art. There's a reason for it.
Yeah, beautiful. I love that. Um, and one of the things, Shukria, you had shared with me as we talked about this topic, brainstorming before we came together, is that um, we all see in this world, all of these forces that seem to be pushing and dividing us. It's probably the most vivid and concerning thing that we as visionaries and activists and artists see. Um, what do conscionable people do to avoid that? What's important for us to find?
Sure. Thank you, Julianne. Such an important question because we are living in a very divisive world. That's the current reality, right? For many people around the world. And there's just so many grievances. There's human beings are suffering from all kinds of stuff, but then there's self-serving politicians in the mix. There's corruption. There's groups that are disenfranchised, and they're acting in ways that's dividing humanity. So the thing to do for conscionable people is to become aware that that's what's going on, that our what is being shown to us. We need to go deeper. We need to first educate ourselves, make ourselves aware, not be, don't follow everything the media is giving you. There's good media and bad media. So you really have to be able to discern the right sources of information. That's, I think, the first responsibility is finding good sources of information, becoming aware, getting educated on issues, and then really holding to your own truth. Because what happens is these groups or whoever is spreading whatever wants you to pull into that. But as artists or as activists or just as conscionable human beings, we don't want to be pulled towards darkness. That means we have to hold our own truth tighter, and we have to hold it with more authenticity. And then we have to share that light and that understanding in our own capacity, whatever that capacity is. It could be our own immediate family, it could be as a professional, it could be as an artist, it doesn't matter, but we should be sharing and holding up the light, and we should stand against any kind of divisiveness. This is, I think, where we are all feeling the dark and light forces, and it becomes more and more important that we hold our own light, we hold on to our own truth, and we radiate that externally, no matter how difficult it gets. And I think that is really the true test of conscionable people today.
Beautiful. Myrna, I'm wondering, in your art, in your music, when in the midst of this divisiveness, like how do you feel music can transcend that or help break through that that divisiveness?
Wow. um, there are so many ways that music has been used, whether it was Bob Dylan or We Are the World, so many times where music has been used to bring awareness to the consciousness of the circumstance and the situation. I was just thinking, and so what I was looking for with this is called The Higher Ground. Stevie Wonder, back 41 years ago, wrote a song called Higher Ground. And at the time, he was saying, powers, keep on lying while your people keep on dying. World keep on turning because it won't be too long. you know and so what he's saying is, he's like, I'm so glad I learned my lesson, and I want to make sure that everybody else learns their lesson too, that we've got to get higher, we've got to take it higher, to a higher ground in order to change things, because on this level, it's just fighting against fighting against fighting, and we have to very much so change that. And then there's also a song that I recently recorded. It's called "Love Starts with Me," and it's such a beautiful song. And the lyrics, the last stanza just says, "When you love more than your mind, love with more than your mind, you will learn that you too are kind. Give a gift that never ends. Encourage peace that forever mends." Just the lyrics of that just kind of says it. And it's like, the ending, with love there's a brighter day, with love one can see their way. It's like, well, it kind of gets me, woo woo. But at the end, it's like, it's just less, love starts with me. Love starts with me. Love starts with me. I
Mm.
can change those closest to me, a part of my consideration set. If that, and so I individually, if I'm elevating myself to a higher ground, and then I influence those people that are just right next to me, and then they can touch the people right next to them, then we're all elevating the circumstance to a better, higher place. And it's always better, even when I'm singing the song Somewhere Over the Rainbow. You know, I'm saying to people, the birds, in that song, you talked about the birds flying, and the birds know when trouble comes around, they just get away. They leave, because there's too much tension going on. And so they'll fight away. Gosh, could we learn from circumstances where when it's getting too heated, you know what? Let's just, even if we step away in our mind, to disappear, and go to that higher place, to shift, to see things in a different way. Because once we see it, we can then change it. And so I love in terms of what Kathy was saying, in terms of the story. The stories are truths that people have experienced, that they can tell you, well, this is what happened with me, and I can change that, in a way, and let me tell you how I was able to do it for me. And then from there, if I can do it, I'm not unique or special. If I can do it, you can do it too. And
Yeah.
so that's such a wonderful, wonderful thing to take us to that higher place, because it allows us to go into that place of imagination and that shift to see possibilities. So
Mm.
I just musically, there's so many ways, where art. Um, um, Lastly, I will say, I've had the pleasure of, singing, and I'll make this really quick, to thousands of persons in the audience. And I've got the microphone. And so I can either charge them up for negative or charge them up for positive, because I'm in front of them communicating and sending a message. And so I, whoever's holding that microphone, politician, singer, whomever, has the responsibility to elevate the space. That's the responsibility that someone has to, that holds that microphone, to take it to a better place. And so, as artists, that's what we're trying to do, because we can see things, we see the audience, and we're seeing that either they're needing to be encouraged or they need to be motivated even further to do good, to do good. So,
Mm. Wow. Powerful, Myrna, and love that voice. It's its own healing power as well. Thank you for sharing that with us. And Kathy, I know in your writing, you are really exploring relationships and how even across cultures we can find higher ground. Would you have some insights around that?
I do, and I just wanna make one quick comment about what Myrna just said. Sometimes when we put out our art, we might not be standing there when somebody is experiencing it. And, I listen most mornings to an inspirational song. I just have a list, right? Playlist. And the past week, I've been listening to an oldie but goodie, Jewel's Hands. I highly recommend everybody going and listening to that, but I have a whole list. It's probably 100 songs long at least. And I went to look at the video before this, and there was a comment underneath the video. It just happened to be there synchronously, and, it said, "Heard this in the airport returning back from war. Tired, hungry, beaten, lost, just discharged. I heard the lyrics, and they saved my life. I was close to not being alive had I not heard that voice of an angel." So, I just think that's what we do even if we aren't aware of it. And as far as my own writing, I feel like I could talk about war until I fainted, and it might not make a difference because I've seen a lot of war. But if you, as any kind of artist, talk about a family unit, even with all their transgressions, all of their different beliefs, even if there's certain taboo topics in certain cultures, the one thing we have in common, and what I've tried to do through my writing, especially my novels, is to make that macrocosmic negative cloud and pull it aside and say, look, the sunshine is within the family unit, whatever family means, and what a family wants for its children is happiness, prosperity, the ability to earn a living. And that's why I write. I write for those children who might have less now, but they will definitely have more if there's enough light in the world for shown on their on the light, not the dark. I was also listening to a new minister in Parliament. His name is David Lammy, and music was what got him where he is. He was in a London part of London. I don't know London as well as I should. Um, West Indian. He was very poor, and he lost both his parents, and he got pulled into a corral and went on from there to Harvard, and now he is, I think he's Minister of State in England. Um, that's what art can do in all its different facets.
Yes. As Kathy's talking about our experiences with conflict and war, Shukria, there's not one of us who is more familiar with that than you. I know that you've shared with me your earliest memories in your life are hearing the tanks roll into Kabul in Afghanistan, in your country, and you have led congressional delegations to Afghanistan to help them understand the situation on the ground, and would love to hear your thoughts on, what's most important, as we tell stories and share from our hearts, to bypass, like you said earlier, just the logical, but to speak to the part of us that can really uh, elicit change.
Thank you. And both Kathy and Myrna have said such beautiful things that just really resonate with me as well. I mean, I remember as a child, really, the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, and then all the trauma that came with that. And then, my parents saved the family. We were in the US, we came as refugees. Years later, I experienced 9/11. And then I was caught between that again as an Afghan and as an American. And then I think, Kathy, earlier you said I can talk about war until I'm blue. And I've done that actually in my career. And I became blue, and I decided I need to do a little digging deeper spiritually and artistically, because no matter how much of an expert you become, and I devoted my entire career to conflict resolution and my academics and all the work I've done, it really does fall on deaf ears. It just largely falls on deaf ears. So how do you get people to hear what the victims in these conflict zones or war zones are experiencing? And I think that's where both Myrna and Kathy have talked about this. You have to kind of dig in and share the light. And for me, maybe this is the right moment to share a poem that I did write about the experience of Afghans, but also, like, really today, it's also about the experience of everybody that's living in war zones or are on the receiving end of atrocities. And this poem, particularly, was inspired as I saw Afghans year after year traveling and doing fact finding trips, but also because for 4 years I worked on multiple other conflicts and spoke to advocates around the world that were giving me the same shared story over and over again. So this poem is in the voice of the victim, and it's talking to its perpetrators. When you unleash your bombs on on our people and our lands, do you see us burn to ashes, lit on fire? How deep does it satisfy you? Our blood splashed on ruins, broken bones, bleeding limbs, missing arms and legs, spread across dust and concrete, Little children under rubble, babies, women and men slaughtered. Do you get a cheap thrill? When you rain down your bombs, do you wait around and see who got killed? Does your army rejoice? Forget our bodies. That's just flesh and blood. No value to you. But tell me, do you see our spirits? Of course not. You are blinded by hate and revenge because you have disturbed and destroyed our people and our land and slaughtered us for decades. As the world watches in deafening silence, blurring lines between truth and lies, still our spirit rises from our dead bodies, witnessing something much more horrific. Your bombs and your guns and your soldiers continue taking innocent lives, but you can't see the real calamity. You yourself, with your own hands, have killed your own humanity. And I think that's the moment we're in. We're seeing it everywhere, but we're silent. And that is killing our humanity. And I think as conscionable people, we have to hold the light and not be blind and reach out in whatever capacity we can.
Mm. Thank you for sharing that,
point. I'm so
Shukria.
I'm sitting here shaking. Um, just to kind of interject, if you don't mind, Julian, as you were sharing, Shakria, I was reminded that a friend of mine, because I was like, why is there so much war? Why is there so much war? And my friend said, who's profiting from war? Because whoever's profiting from war doesn't want peace. And that's where it lies. It's like, why? Because someone's benefiting from this war happening, and that's greater than the humanity.
Yeah.
And it is unconscionable. It's like, what? How can anything be more important than humanity? Well, whomever's profiting from this war, ask them. Because to your point, Kathy, it's about family. It's about, we all care about happiness, making a living for our family, and earning a living and being together. And so, who is it that's profiting from destroying that? Who is that?
The people that don't think that their children are the same as the children who are being bombed. They have cut off that part of their humanity, and it's been done for most of humanity's history. And now's the time for it to change.
That is so.
Yeah.
What you're saying. You're the These people don't matter. These people are not humans. These people, I've closed my eyes to them because they don't exist, or they are lesser than me and my people.
Or they're over there.
Mm.
Yeah. It's not affecting me, right? I don't have to do anything.
Yeah,
That's
exactly. There was a study that I saw where there were war games, and if you were confronted by someone, you're less likely to, because you're more likely to see their humanness. You're less likely to harm them. But the further away you are from the person, and so the war games with machines, then it's okay because I'm not seeing them. I'm not seeing the results of what I'm doing, and so and it's and the more and more we get to away from the action one-on-one, the less blood you see, the less burning you see. And it's just, that doesn't mean that it's not happening. It's just you're it's a game, really. It's not real, but it very much so is real. It's These are lives that are impacted, and it's you have to change.
yeah. It's real. Yeah. It's real for people on the receiving end of it, right? And I think unless we come together as humanity and stop these kind of things, we're all going to be victims sooner or later. Because when you wait, it will come to your door. That's my own lived experience. So
Shukria, one of the things that you also reminded us of was when we think about sharing light with our art, our stories, our heart expressions, um, it also means sharing light with the perpetrators.
Yes.
Can you speak to that? That seems to be
Yeah.
for all humans the hardest challenge, but the most necessary one for us to transcend this
Yeah.
divisiveness.
Yeah, I think, and I'll go back to what Myrna and Kathy said. It's about staying connected to your own light first, because to be able to see the perpetrator or the aggressor as human, also, we have to be able to be open enough to forgive. And that is the hardest part. It's the hardest part for the victim, it's the hardest part for the witness. And but if we can't do that, it's like an eye for an eye will make the whole world blind. So somewhere the bleeding has to stop. Somewhere the forgiveness has to be spread. We have to all be able to do that work on ourselves. I've had to do it on my own to be able to do the work that I'm doing, because constantly I'm reminded of the perpetrators. And to also understand that that perpetrator wasn't born that way. Where did society fail for them to get up and act in such an inhumane way? Whether that was an individual or it's a systematic army doing something. Where did society fail? That's where our personal responsibility comes. I think we have to ask ourselves those questions. We have to look much deeper than the symptom. We have to look at root causes, and then we have to shine the light there for solutions. And if we're failing in starting with forgiveness and working towards solution, reconciliation, peace, we're just not, we're eventually going to just be in a nuclear war and we'll all be finished. I mean, that's the world we're living in. So unless we're able to really like go from the macro to the micro, do the inner work simultaneous to actually externally also shining that light. And I think it's a journey for all of us. I don't, I know that I came to this through my own work and also through my own lived experience, and then also through personal responsibility, right? That I also had responsibility to forgive. Um, I've witnessed a great number of abuses, and I've been impacted within my own family. So you have to forgive. You have to be able to extend the hand, because otherwise all of us would want revenge. So, and that just leaves nobody safe. So I think it's going within and working on forgiveness and holding that light, but it's also shining that light externally and spreading awareness, spreading knowledge on root causes of conflict, and then whatever action you can take that will have positive impact for peace, harmony, and reconciliation. And I think in so many words, Myrna and Kathy have said the same thing. We're just all human. We want the same things. But when we start othering each other, that's the danger. Or when we allow others to make us other each other, that's even a bigger danger,
Mm,
because they do that to the masses. So it's becoming just really conscious of all of those noises.
absolutely. The shift that we're talking about from divisiveness to recognizing our oneness, which is what humanities team really is a beacon for in our world. Um, Myrna, you had talked about how and why artists often are called to lead the transformation. Whether that's the singers in the Bible. Tell us about that. Tell us
You
about
know,
that.
I'm thank you. I'm sorry for cutting you off, but yes, yes, yes. I'm a huge proponent by saying artists are always on the front line of social change. Always on the front line of social change. I think it's in our DNA. We feel it probably before anybody else. And so, and I was saying to Julianne how even in the Bible it references how they sent the singers out before the warriors. There are examples throughout where the singers went out to say, hey, the army's behind us. Please, please, we're praising God for you to change. Don't do this. Don't do this. It's like At least that's my interpretation why the singers went out before. But singers also go out before the greatness and the goodness, in celebration. And so singers go out to express what is and communicate positiveness and communicate the need for change. Um, firmly recognize, even again back in the biblical days, but also with that, musicians in the Bible, we learn about King David and how he was able to heal through music. He was able to soothe through music. He was able to motivate through music. And musicians, that's what they do. That's what we do. And I say the first instrument is the voice. And so I consider myself a musician as well. And so all of that. And so if I can just share real quick as well, Juliet, I shared with you when I was in the Baltics with the State Department, um, I learned that three of the five Baltic states, Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia, and it started with Estonia. When they were occupied by Russia, they actually began singing, and through peaceful nonviolence, through their songs, they actually shifted, or it ultimately, over a 5-year period, through their songs, that they had a peaceful nonviolent movement resisting the Russians. And how that happened, I don't know, but I do know that they give credence, and they call it I'm looking up at my notes. um, they call it a fight for freedom. And they call it the Baltic Chain Song, where actually people connected hands and arms from Lithuania through Latvia up to Estonia, holding hands from between country to country, and they began singing for peace. And so they give credit to hundreds of thousands of people coming together to speak, to sing. And so the chanting, the music, the power of that coming together peacefully against war. And ultimately, um, we saw what happened, the breakup of the Soviet Union. And they don't even classify that period of time, that 50 years that Russia, they were occupied by Russia. They just say they were just there, but our independence existed. And so again, giving credence to the music, to the song, and having that nonviolence as their approach to peace, and using music. And so we actually sang that song while I was there, because we were there in 2018 celebrating their 100th year of independence. And I was like, well, how is it 100 years and the Soviet Union was in the middle? And we don't count that. We don't count that. And they were just there. They were just occupying, but they're gone now. And it's just, and so again, long way of answering that. Music transcends the soul. It penetrates. Well, at the end of the day, it gets to that vibration and that wave pattern that penetrates and enters your senses, and it gets you, it agitates to get you to shift and change. And so that's what it's such a transformational experience. Lastly, when I was in Germany, and I'm sorry, I'm all these things are going in my head real fast. While I was in Germany, and I was with a gospel group, and they could tell the Germans got goosebumps, and then they would say, I know you have the spirit because I've got goosebumps. And that means it's a manifestation of the spirit, because I feel it in my energy. And so while you may not know the language, you feel the spirit, and that transforms, and you can have a literal manifestation of that. And it's a sign that, oh, this is more than just a song. This is something that can transform what we're doing. And I need to pay attention to this, because this is stimulating me in a way that I'm not controlling. And so firmly believe the necessity of singing, especially, and music, because I believe that God or Source created all music, but it's the lyrics that sort of mess things up. And so you've got to be very careful and mindful of what you're saying.
That is so powerful, Myrna, and we can feel the energy, the passion, the connection, right, that comes through art. And it has been so for the history of humankind. And we are all creators. We were born creators. One of the things that I talk about in Genesis of Genius is that the the original word in Sanskrit for human is Manu, and it means he who imagines. That's who we are. That's our identity. Is the creators. We're the ones who can imagine and create, consciously create something more than what already exists. That's the magic that we have. And as artists, and I believe every human is a creator artist, and our expressions are important. All of them matter. And everything that we've shared today, just beginning to shine light on these different aspects of the power of art and activism. But it's profound, even as much as we were able to share today. And Shukria, I know that uh, it's for this reason. And as Myrna kind of referred to, we've seen how coming together with artists and activists can change the world. We Are the World and Live Aid, and you can see the platforms of artists like Angelina Jolie and Tarani P. Henson talking about, bringing light political issues that others might not know about on the Black Entertainment Awards. When artists use their voice and their platform and their medium to transcend those divisions, it's profound. It is world changing, and for that reason, Shukriya, would you say just a bit more about the Artist Activist Alliance and where people can find more information about that?
Sure. Well, the website is artistactivistalliance.org. And if you can email Dellawar at artistactivistalliance.org, I can send more information. But basically, I established the organization after 15 years of work as an advocate, learning that actually collaborating with artists give a lot more life to the work of the advocate. So the advocates may be experts in different areas, but the artist really takes that to the mainstream. There's a wider reach. They know how to give that imagination, that vision, and also just the support that comes from the masses. So that collaboration with the expertise is key to really impacting the world positively. This is why Artists and Activists is established. So if anyone wants to support, collaborate, and giving out a welcome invite, please reach out. And that includes Kathy and, of course, Myrna right here. So, yeah, that's it. Hand off time to the next panelist.
Beautiful. Myrna, you have so many great initiatives in the world. Is there a way that people can find out more about your work?
Absolutely. And thank you so much, Julian, for inviting me to be on this amazing panel. I'm honored to be with all of y'all. And by me saying y'all, I'm from the South in the U.S. So, but the organization that I founded about 14 years ago now is called Showability. And so the website is showability.org, and just like it sounds, Showability. And it's all about artists being on the front line of social change. We work with performing artists. And the disability community is the largest minority population in the U.S. And disability is not unique to the U.S. It's a global situation has a stigma narrative that's been lingering and limiting since the beginning of time. And we tend to shun, look away, as opposed to learn to engage these human beings. And so we work in the space of artist development, advocacy for accessibility and accommodations, and employment in terms of workforce. And lastly, as Kathy was talking about, for enjoyment. It's about enjoyment. And so we come together, entertainment, for that. And so again, showability.org. We're on all the social media platforms. But you just go there. And as an artist, go to myrnaclayton.com, and excited to be able to perform as an artist around the world. Just being a light, and light knows light.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Absolutely. And Kathy, your great work, all of your writing and your guidance for others. Tell us how others can find out more about your work.
So I feel light after this. People may argue that trying to forge peace hasn't gotten very far, but I say this is just the beginning. If we share our stories and our art and then we act upon it. You can find my books, A Thousand Flying Things and The Shores of Our Souls. There's a bridge on the shores of our souls, people. It's there for a reason. On online retailers and indie bookstores. And you can find out more about me at Kathryn Brown Ramsperger, Ramsperger, no B in that name, .com. Ground One, not zero, Ground One Coaching.com, and at Kathy Ramsperger on just about all social media. I'd love to connect.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. I do also have a gift for everyone who's listening. My Signature Genius workshop is my gift to everyone who would like to really talk about and explore for yourself how you can make that shift from what is to what can be in your life. The URL is mygeniusworkshop.com. And I would love for you to experience that. And thank you all for being the voices that you are, the visionaries that you are in the world, for joining us today. Thank you to Humanities Team, as always, for being such a light and beacon for global oneness. And we are so joyful to be part of Global Oneness Day as one of the panels, and wishing everyone a, of an experience of and participation in finding that higher ground. Blessings.